All right, ladies and germs. Today we're going to be doing the south node of the moon, Ketu, in the 10th house, in the house of career. All right? And what happens when this planet that knows no boundaries, that literally has no direction because he has no head, and the one that is known as the isolated spiritual, planet, known as Ketu, in the 10th house of career, your authority, your reputation outside into the world, outside away from the 4th house, which is your home. So when Ketu comes here, usually it's a very turbulent career life. A lot of ups and downs. Why? Because Ketu has no eyesight. He has no direction where to go, what to do. So a lot of confusion in career. Okay? And not just by your own choosing, but because people will be opposing you. Here's the thing, since Ketu doesn't have head, and this has nothing to do with the aspect, since Ketu doesn't have head, he goes into wrong directions. And there are good people, there are bad people, then there are really evil people. So Ketu either runs into the evil people and bad people, and then sometimes good people, but he keeps running into them and he doesn't realize what's happening. And what happens is, especially since 10th house represents the government, these people tend to get trouble with the government. Or remember what I told you about Ketu in the 8th house. Ketu in the 8th house loves just revealing secrets because he thinks that everybody is privileged enough to know everything about this planet, everything about this world. And so when this planet, and that's what Ketu does in every house, but when Ketu goes into the house of government, house of authority, house of the kingdom, now it wants to reveal and make all the affairs of the government transparent. And this is where they get into trouble. So if they become like a public, and this is actually one of the most common positions you'll find in a government office, because these people are not there for the sake of just being there for corporations and for, as to play the game of politics. No, they're there because, again, Ketu is spiritual planet. He wants to help, actually. He wants to actually make everything transparent. So when they go in the office, they have an agenda. They're like, no, we got to tell what people want to know. We got to tell people what is going on here. And so they create a lot of enemies. Why? That's because when the Ketu's aspects come into play. However, here you can definitely, also be not just in a government leader position, but you can also be in finance as well. And that too again comes through the aspect. So you can be in banking and finance. However, if you want to prosper with this position of Ketu, if you really do not want that turbulent career ups and downs, and this only works in one scenario, is that if you love research work, try to go and research. Try to isolate yourself from the public life. Because research is what? Especially science research. You're in a lab. You're away from the world. You're probably like, if you're at CERN in Geneva, I think, or in Europe, if you're at CERN, you go like, 100 meters down, which is, I don't know, like half a mile down. I'm not sure. I'm not good with this metric stuff. But you go underground, you work in isolation, and that becomes your world. Because Ketu is what? Ketu is isolation. Ketu is separation of the soul from the material world and bringing it back to the spiritual world. So obviously, if you're a leader, you'll be a very spiritual and very, that right kind of a spiritual leader. A career in spirituality can also work with this. However, your image can be tarnished as a spiritual leader. So if you have this and you try to be a saint, then you may have some people who get jealous of you, do not like you, and they'll start spreading news that, oh, he's using the donation money to buy drugs and get women and whatnot, and then your reputation gets tarnished. So reputation is always on the line with this alignment of Ketu in the 10th house. But again, like I said, the best place is to be isolated, to be away from that authoritative environment. So, if like these people become writers, if they become researchers, scientists, if they work in the back end, it's far better than being out in the eyes of the public. Because again, Ketu is without the head. He doesn't really know who to run into, what to do. So they get scammed a lot, in their professional career, because again, they're running into wrong people. They think they're right people, but they're not, because they don't have the brain or the eye to see that. So that's where the problem comes in. However, from the 10th house, Ketu looks at the 2nd house, the 4th house, and the 6th house. And let's discuss what these aspects do. So from the 10th house, Ketu is looking at the 2nd house of finance, your wealth, your hoarded wealth, your assets, your family lineage, your family, history, your actual current family, your ability to speak, your ability to intake stuff. So usually this kind of gives a very distant relationship with the family, isolation from the family. Like because of your career, you'll be isolated a lot with your family, or your reputation with the family will not be good. Because again, Ketu is in the reputation house. Now, the way it does well is only if the 10th house lord is in Kendra. It's powerful in Kendra. That's when you get that, absolute support from them. But most of the time, it's just a very isolated relationship. Like you may be there, you may be in the same house, but just you feel isolated from them. Your voice, whenever you speak, you want to speak the truth. That's the thing. You do want to speak the truth with Ketu, even though it's a malefic planet. Because again, like I said, Ketu looks for the truth. Ketu wants to tell the truth. And especially when these people, let's say go into political sphere, become politicians. And when they speak, they kind of just spill out all the dirty secrets of the government, of how the society is manipulating the people, and they will. And the problem is though, because of their opening their mouth, they get into trouble. So when they speak and they spill out all the beans, and and people love them, however, then they're again creating enemies. So they have to be careful as to when they do speak, make sure that everything is covered. All grounds are balanced. Don't try to make government your enemy. Don't try to make some mafia your enemy. And naturally the other people with other planetary alignments kind of know that. But these people are just like, no, I have to be transparent, not just with my action, but with my words. However, this can also give a bit of a, addictive quality when it comes to food, like non-veg food, even though it's a spiritual planet. It may be like intake of alcohol. It does that. Especially if the 10th house lord is in the Dushanta and then Ketu is sitting there, yeah, definitely. It can make somebody an alcoholic. It can make somebody who just eats without thinking. Like they'll say, these are one of those people, hey, I'll try anything once, and they just do it because the Ketu's brain is not there to think. And then again, the tug of war of Rahu and Ketu comes into play. Ketu is in the professional life, yet wants to run into the private life, yet he has no choice. Rahu his job is now being in that private life, and yet since he's aspecting the 10th house, he wants to cut and go towards the professional life. This is why that fame comes into play. They get fame, okay? They get fame, but not because of really Ketu, but because of Rahu's aspect on the 10th house. And anytime Rahu aspects the 10th house, it can make you famous, whether worldwide, whether in your community, whether in your local city or state or your country. Okay, so that's what happens with this. Then Ketu looks at the 6th house of debt, diseases, enemies, litigation. And pretty much it becomes a major problem for these people. Because Ketu's without the head and direction runs into a lot of the 6th house issues, making enemies through litigation, running into court cases. They can have diseases of the intestine, lower intestine, unusual diseases, kind of like, that it's known as Fishula. Okay, they can run into that. because of their intake of the second house. Because you know, like what they say, you get the problem of the intestine and lower intestine if you eat too much non-veg. And this is where the problem comes into play. So you better watch out. You know, like if you're doing this, stop it. Because you don't want those little unusual, undetectable diseases. All right, that's a problem. And then because Ketu is running into all these ups and downs in the career and dealing with enemies and then trying to find some isolation and running away from their authoritative figure that they are now, because they usually have this battle. They're like, man, I don't want this. And then they want this. So it becomes a ups and down psychologically, mentally, physically. And this is where their finance kind of go haywire and they can get into debt. Because 6th house represents debt and Ketu is looking there. So because of your career field, you can get into debt. Maybe you took advanced courses to advance yourself in your company, but then suddenly there was no job available, yet you took so much debt to get your MBA and now it's not panning out. So these things can happen. So when you have Ketu in the 10th house, pay attention to the aspects, the houses that is aspecting. You know, once you get those in control, then the balance will come in your 10th house as well. But again, that, you know, scientific research career, I would say, would be the best place versus even, you know, a real public life, because yeah, it can damage your reputation. Okay. So guys, this was my analysis of Ketu in the 10th house. If you are new to my channel, subscribe above. And if you want to know where your Ketu and the south node of the moon is placed, check out my link below. Check out my book, Astrology at the Speed of Light. And when you get the book, I will send you a link to look at your own chart. Just make sure you follow the directions below. Otherwise, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.